How's it going? I hope your day is going super mega fantastically. If you've never met me before, my name's Julie. Welcome to the Julie's Paint Party YouTube channel, where I believe that anyone can learn how to paint and you don't have to break the bank. I just use really simple supplies from the dollar store to make beautiful paintings, and I absolutely adore teaching people how to paint. So I'm so happy you found me. Today we are tackling this really pretty St. Paddy's Day style painting. I wanted to do something a little bit different this year. Often, I'll do like a leprechaun gnome or like, shamrocks with like a rainbow and all sorts of stuff. But I wanted to make it a little bit more tasteful this year. So I made this St. Paddy's Day moon landscape for us to paint together. We're only using, I think, about 6 colors, and I'm also on a 10 by 20 canvas. Honestly, just use what you have. If you have to move the moon in a little bit closer, it's okay. We're just here to have fun, get some practice in, let loose, let go of some pent up stress or emotions. We're here for a good time, okay? So with that said, if you ever feel like having your own paint party with your own group of friends, I absolutely love hosting virtual paint parties as well as in-person paint parties. And you can find out all the information you need in that department on my website, juliespaintparty.com. And yeah, painting's a great shared experience. So even though it's really fun and a great way to release stress on your own, doing it with people is really fun. It's a great way to get connected, even if we're like all apart in the world. So just entertain the idea if you have a good time today. And coming up, I'm going to show you all the supplies we're going to use just from the dollar store to make this beautiful painting together. Nice. So again, I'm going to go through the supply list. Today, like I said, I'm using a 10 by 20 canvas. It's long and skinny, but we work with what we got when we're just painting at home. So if you have watercolor paper or a different size canvas, use the same techniques. You just kind of gotta weasel it a little bit differently, work it so that everything kind of fits in the frame instead of it being so long and skinny. Now I have 6 colors today. I'm going to show you what I have. So I have some black. So I'm double tasking here. Black. I have some dark blue. This one's called Copenhagen blue, but any version of a darker blue will do the trick. I have some turquoise. I have some yellow. Any kind of yellow will be good. This one's called bright yellow, but honestly, whatever. I have some dark green. This one's called pine green, but any kind of regular green will do the trick as well. And of course, I have a little white on hand too. I have my holy trifecta of brushes. And these are the 3 brushes that I use the most out of everybody. So I have a big flathead brush. This one I like to call my Fatty McFatterson flathead. This is a 3/4 inch brush, but honestly, 1 inch will work. If you want to get bigger, you can. I feel like 1 inch to 3/4 inch is a great size for a lot of different canvases. So especially if you're, don't want to buy too many supplies, that range is a really good range to have. I also have a 1/2 inch flathead brush. It's just a smaller version of the big brush that I have. And I have a nice long liner brush too. So this has got a nice long skinny lid on it. It's okay to have a shorter bristle on your brush today. Sorry, that was really hard to say. Bristles and brush is really hard to say a lot. So I always like to use my longer liner brush, but honestly for this painting you don't need a super long one. You can just use a regular sized one. Anyways, I will disappear for a second here. So I also have my cup of water, I have a napkin, and I guess I need a plate too. So I'm going to grab a plate to put my paints on, and then we can get this party started. Okie dokie. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get all of my colors onto my plate. Now just remember, because we're painting at home, you can just put a little bit of paint on your plate at a time. Probably need a little bit more. You can always add more. okay? Nobody's chaining you down, telling you you can't use more paint. So if you just start with like a little bit on your palette, you can always put more on there, and then you'll be able to paint longer because you won't waste all your paint. And I have a totally bad habit of wasting paint. So don't listen to me, or don't look how much I'm putting on there. You can just put little bits on and be totally good. Now I'm a little skeptical. I think, no, I'm just gonna put like a tiny little bit of black on to start. Black can be tricky, so sometimes I like to wait to put it on my canvas, but I'm gonna get it on there now, and hopefully I don't hit it while we're painting. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna say 90% of this painting is gonna be done with my Paddy McFadderson flathead. And we're gonna start in the sun area, or the moon area, sorry, in this area right here. And we're gonna be making circles moving outwards towards the sides of our canvas. Now, just remember, the more you can handle going back and forth with your brush hundreds and hundreds of times and round, the more your colors are gonna come together. And for this painting in particular, it's nice to have blends in and out, but you can see there's lots of streaks happening in the background of this painting. So I don't overly focus on how well everything's blended. I just like to see all sorts of different tones of colors in the background. Last thing I'm gonna say before we get started is we're gonna start with white in the middle, but I'm gonna put, oh, see, look what it just, I just got a bunch of black on my painting. Buddy, how did that even happen? Hold on. I told you, it's sneaky. Black can be sneaky. Get that off there. Oh my God, okay. Oh my goodness, okay. Let me make sure I don't have any black on my brush to get started. Anyways, like I was saying, I'm gonna start with white in the middle, but I'm not expecting the white to show up like this. I'm gonna put the sun on after. So if your white ends up turning a shade of green or blue, 100% actually better than if it's pure white, okay? So first things first, I'm gonna put a little water on my brush, gonna grab a little scoop of white to start, and right in this area here, I'm just gonna start to go back and forth, and I'm gonna make about, let's say, a 3 or 4 inch white circle. So whenever I'm blending, especially when it's circular, whatever color I'm using, I always add more on the outsides than I'm expecting to see in the end, because the next color I put on is going to eat the color that I had before. So I'm gonna take my white out a little further than what I wanna see. I'm gonna start with some turquoise. I'm gonna grab a little turquoise on my paintbrush, and I'm gonna start to go around the outside of the circle. It looks really wonky to start, but if you can find the flow of kind of going back and forth with your brush, and I'm bringing that little bit of turquoise I had on my brush towards the center of my white. So I'm kind of, my brush is nice and flat. I got it nice and pushed flat against my canvas, and I just kind of go back and forth until I reach the middle, and that's what's gonna give it a little bit of a greener tone in the center. And then I'll come back out, just like breathing. You breathe in and you breathe out, okay? And then you have this beautiful little gradient circle happening. So I took my color on the outside, I brought it inward, and give it a little twirly whirl there. And then I'm gonna bring it back out. Voila, now I have a nice gradient, and I'm gonna start back with my turquoise on the outside of that line. So a little water is cool because water really helps my brush move smoothly. So grab a little water, grab a little turquoise, and I'm gonna start on the outside edge, and I'm gonna start to bring that turquoise on the outside of this circle. Now, if you see some harsh lines, you can always take your brush and kind of pet them out, like moving towards the center. But after you do that, start to move away from it again, okay? And like I said, we I always like to put more paint on the canvas than what I'm expecting to see in the end. So I'm just going to put a couple inches worth of turquoise. And then I'm going to start to bring in some other colors. So I have this beautiful blue here. I'm going to start to bring that in. And it's truly a choose your own adventure game from here. So all we want to see in the background are lots of beautiful colors in this color range. So in the background, I'm using the white, the dark green, the turquoise, and the blue, and just bringing my brush back and forth, mixing those colors together. And there is no rhyme or reason what color is better than another. Now, if you don't want it to be super dark at first, you grab a little white and you can mix a little white in there too. So white is a great, what's the word I want to use? It's a great color to merge, okay? I love merging my colors, and white I feel like is the color that helps merge all the colors together the most. So when in doubt, if you're feeling like any of your lines are looking too harsh, too stagnant, give it a few extra swoops back and forth, add a little white into the mix, and just have fun continuing to add colors as we go along. So with that said, we have the blue. I added a little white into it. I'm going to grab a little bit of the green and I'm going to start popping that in there. Now, obviously we're hitting the sides of the canvas, but we still want to follow that same circular motion. So even if your brush kind of pops off the canvas, try and keep it in that same circular way so that it's all moving in the same direction. Okay, I'm gonna grab some white, swoop that in there. And just beware that if you don't have enough paint on your brush, it's going to feel dry and it's going to look dry. So you either need more paint or you need to add a little water to your brush to keep that smooth flowing brush stroke happening throughout this background part here. Okay, so I'm going to just keep alternating. I got my turquoise. Mix some green in there. And honestly, all the colors look so pretty together. You really don't have to worry about which ones go where. So we're just using the green, the turquoise, and the blue and the white for the background for now. And I really like it to look like it's resonating, so I'll pop in like little strokes of blue and white every once in a while just to get these cool little like, I like to call them streakies, because that's what they are. They're streakies. We streak it to the east, I streak it to the west, I streak it to the woman that I love best. We're streaking. And I'm just going to keep on going all the way to the outside. Now, I like to keep it a little bit more sporadic, so instinctually it feels good to do like light green, dark green, light green, dark green. But you know, pop in a little bit of color every once in a while, you know. We don't want it to all look super uniform. It's fun when it has different tones coming out of all the little tops and bottoms of our canvas. Now I will say, as we're kind of cruising towards the corners, I like to use a little bit of blue in the corner because it's the darker of most of the colors here. So I like to kind of vignette it around the corners of my canvas with a little bit more of a darker, using the dark blue right in the corner spots. So as I kind of creep my way out to these side edges, anytime I see a dry spot, you can do a little dip in your cup, little tap on your palette, and that'll fill in any kind of little empty, where you see your little canvas holes poking through there. So when you see me doing this, like really, it's because I'm trying to fill in those little spots. So anywhere where I see a dry spot, I'll give it a little shake, but then I take my brush after and I smooth it out. I don't just leave it all shaked up like that. I shook up like that. And give my, canvas a little bit of a once over. I like to wipe out if there's any like goobers anywhere, or meaning there's just like big gobs of paint somewhere. I like to move them around a little bit. And like I said, I like my painting to be a little bit more on the streaky side. So in the end, I'll grab a little bit of water with a little bit of white. And just every once in a while, the water with your brush before you grab your white really helps to keep your brush strokes smooth without taking over what you've already done. So if you have a little water on your brush with that little bit of white, it'll thin it out a bit, and you'll be able to make nice, fun little brush strokes around in a circle, make it look like it's really shining bright, while simultaneously filling in any kind of canvas cracks or anything like that. And you can do it with your blue too, blue or green, honestly, any of the colors. So once it's all filled in, I'm just gonna take a few minutes to grab a little water. I'll grab a color and just kind of make some extra strokes around in a circle. Okay, I think I'm good. Just gonna give my brush a little rinse here. Now the center here is pretty bright, so just with that said, I think I'm gonna take a little bit of extra color. I'm gonna take a little bit of white and turquoise and just kind of fill this in a little bit more so that my moon stands out a little more on top of the color here. So it's great that it's light, but I do want it to be a little darker just so that it actually shows up where you can see that nice hard edge of the moon. I'll see you on the hard edge of the moon. Whoa. To be honest, you could totally do this forever. Like, just if this makes you feel good, just kind of bringing your brush around in a circle and adding little bits of paint and, finding that flow and that beautiful kind of like synchronicity between your brush and that beautiful kind of zoned in feeling. Like, honestly, just do it for a little longer then. Because if you're taking lots of deep breaths and finding your center, it's so worth it. It's a great time to push your gratitude button too. I I'm a big advocate of pushing the gratitude button while I'm painting. So just to kind of bring in extra good energy to the situation, just think of all the things I actually have in my life. Not think about the things that are lacking, but things that are already here available to me right now. So just the fact that I'm here painting and getting to talk on a camera is pretty magnificent, I must say. Okie dokie. All right, I'm gonna stop that for now, and I want you to keep going until you feel like you can't go anymore. And when we come back, we'll start to add all the little different elements on there to make it fun and fancy and fantastic. All right, great work, friend. Now, next step in the process, I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna leave the moon for a little bit. Let's make this landscape down here where we're kind of deciding where our land lives down at the bottom of our canvas. And to create this, I'm using all the same colors that I just did in the sky, except I might add a little bit of black down in the corners, and that's it. But I'm just gonna make it really streaky, and I'm gonna use mostly green. So I have my big brush ready. I'm gonna grab a nice bit of water. I'm gonna grab a nice scoop of green. And if you start a little lower on your canvas and cruise along, you can always make it taller and taller so that it's the size that you want it to be. If you start really tall, that's how big your landscape's gonna be. So I always err on the side of caution. Start low and work your way up, okay? So with that said, I'm aiming for about here. So I'm gonna start about 1 or 2 inches above the bottom of my canvas and just find a hill. Something like that. And I'm just going to start to color it in. And every once in a while, I'm going to grab a little bit of blue to mix in there. I'm going to grab a little white. I'm going to streak it out with some fun colors. White is really helpful because it really helps things show up. They don't get so lost because the colors can be kind of dark. And I'm just going to start with these few colors here. A little blue. You can even grab a little turquoise. Now, one way to think about it is the further we move away from the light source, which is the moon, the lighter or the darker it's going to be. So any kind of like little hilly spots, that's where our highlights are going to be. And even though we're not going to put the yellow on right now, we can start to map out where those spots are by using a little bit of white just right at the tippy tops of my hills here. And I try and make my brush strokes as elongated as possible. So I start at one side and kind of cruise one way, cruise the other way. And if you do want to add a little bit more darkness down in this corner, you can grab a little black, but I'm telling you, like a little. I'm going to grab a tiny, tiny, tiny little corner of black there, just a little bit. And I'll just pop it right down in the bottom here, right in the corner. And same as the sky, if I bring my brush back and forth, back, forth, it's gonna blend in, and it's gonna make a nice little gradient from the corner out. And a little bit goes a long way, so don't overdo it or else you're just gonna have a big black hill. Okay, that's pretty good for now. For now, we're golden here. So I'm gonna give my brush a rinse, and the next step in the process is creating a space for each forest on either side. So you can see it tapers. It's thicker at the top next to the side of the canvas. And as we cruise down into these little crevices here, into like the little crevice of the hill, it's very triangular. It comes down to a point on both sides where it gets a little smaller and smaller and smaller. Same rules apply. If you start really big up here, it's gonna have to taper a lot, but if you start small, you can always grow it up a little bit. Now, I just want you to take a look at the bottom of this, okay? So we have these green trees and we use all the different colors, and I added a little bit of black down at the bottom to make it look on both sides, to make it look like there's a tree, like a forest of trees in there, okay? So we're gonna start by like tapping our brush all over the place, but there's gonna be a point where we're gonna take a little bit of black and we're gonna bring our brush up and down to create a couple little lines, a couple little strokes to make it look a little bit darker underneath of all of the leaves that we have on our trees. Now, to make these little tappies, I am going to start and see how it goes with my big brush. And then if it doesn't work, I'm gonna move over to my smaller flathead brush here. But I'm gonna see how this one goes first. So, first things first, I'm gonna use the corner, so I'll be tapping my brush in my paint like this. And I'm just gonna make a little mixture. I'll tap a little green, a little turquoise. And starting over on this side, I'm just gonna start to tap it in. Tap, tap, taparoo. Now just remember, when we're making trees have like lots of little ups and downs, little peaks and valleys. We're not making a straight line of taps. It's nice to kind of bring your brush up and make some little cotton candy style cloudy tops. So almost like pop up and over, and I'll taper down, you know, to just under the moon area there. Now at first, because we're tapping the same colors of the background onto the canvas, it can feel a little lost, and that's okay. Just start with your green, and the way we're going to make this forest show up is that we are going to tap the tops of our trees with lighter colors. Now, as I'm doing this, I can tell it's going to be really hard to get that little bit of detail into the tops of my trees. So I'm actually going to grab my smaller brush right now, and I'm going to tap in. I'm going to grab a little bit of white just with the corner again. And you can, the more you tap your brush in with the wet paint, it starts to mix in with each other. So it doesn't look so harsh, but it also gives a nice little highlight to the top parts of our trees here. And don't worry, we'll do the same with the yellow later. All the yellow is going to come in good time. If you want to add it now, you totally can. I just, you know, I feel like the yellow needs a little bit of dry paint to go on it to really show up, so I just wait for a little till we're almost done to add the yellow bits on. And this is true for all sorts of spots in our tree line. So if you want to take a little bit of blue and add a few, little shadowy parts in there, or take a little bit more turquoise and add a few highlighted parts, all able to take on the tree area here. Now, like I said, down in this bottom area, I want to create what looks like a little bit of a forest, right? So with my brush, I'm actually going to grab a little bit of blue, and this whole time I've been using the corner kind of tapping, but I'm going to actually drag my brush back and forth in my blue here, back and forth to flatten it out a little bit. So I flatten my brush in there, and I'm just going to grab a little bit of black with that blue. Now my brush is really flat, it has a little black and blue on it, and right down at the bottom I'm going to pull downwards. Now it's not filling in very well, so a little drop of water is probably going to help a lot. Now it might feel a little annoying because sometimes we hit the side of our hill that we just worked so hard on, but if we need to do a little touch up later, that's okay. I need a touch up, I need a touch up, I need a touch up. All right, so just pull in tiny little pulls down, and this part tapers as well. So I'm pulling down and I get smaller and smaller and smaller as I reach the end over here. And what I want to see is I just want to see like little streakies. So I want to see like little bits of black. If they're not really showing up, you can get in there with your brush and add a few extra black lines in there. But when that's all said and done, I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to grab my brush on its side again, and I'm just going to tap over that area so it looks like the trees are behind all of the leaves that are here. All right, I think that looks pretty good. I like it. Okay, rinse, rinse, rinse. Now we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. All right, so let's measure here. If this tree line is just about halfway up my canvas, if I pop over to the other halfway point over here, this tree line here is a little bit above that area. So if you have to like actually use your finger to find the middle, pop up about an inch more from that point to create this set of trees over here. Now it's kind of nice to have a bigger brush to fill in these areas, so I'll start with my big brush, but then I'll probably move over to my smaller brush after. So let's get to tapping. A little bit of green, a little turquoise. Got my middle point here. I'm going to pop up an inch, and I'm going to start in this area here. Like I said, if it's not showing up, you can always grab a little bit of white to help make it pop on top of the background. I'm just going to aim it over here towards the bottom. That should be good. Now over on this side, we have some green involved, but most of it's going to be like a turquoisey kind of white, and I actually added a decent amount, like a little bit of gray. Well, it turns gray, black over into this area here. You can see it's a little darker over here, and that's just because the moon's shining down on these bright trees, so inevitably the further away from our moonlight that we're going to get, the darker it's going to seem over on this side. So I'll start with the trees at first. If anything ever looks kind of off, Just when in doubt, just tap some more, okay? We can always layer more and more on top of things, but if something's not vibing, you can tap color right over top of it. Nothing is the end all be all. You can always add more color on top. And before I get too far with it, I'm going to do the same thing down in this area as I did down there. So I'm going to grab some blue. I'm going to grab a little green in there, and then a little bit of black. Maybe a little water. And I'm going to make some straight pulls up into my trees there. And it tapers as well. Now another little tip and trick that you can use. So the more you use your flathead brush, the more the bristles are going to separate a little bit. So at first they're kind of like really put together and they just make these like straight lines. But if you give it a little tap like straight on your palette here, they start to separate a little bit, and that gives these like really great little lines that kind of do the work for you. You don't have to over you know, make too many lines, because all the lines are already in it from the bristles being separated enough. All right, so got that down there. Now I'm going to go back in with a mix of, you know, a little green and turquoise, whatever mixture I got there, and just hit up the bottoms. Like I said, if you want to darken up this side a little bit, you can grab a little bit of black and start to mix in a little bit more darkness over in this left-hand corner over here. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Now, last but not least, before I add any yellow or any more elements in there, I'm just going to give a little cleanup to the top edge of my hill. Grab a little water with a little green, little turquoise on it, and I'm just going to just gently clean up underneath my tree line over here, and same on this side here. Beauty. All right, so from this point, just keep tapping your trees in until you're done. You're like, I can't do it anymore, and then you're doing so great. It might be time to bring the yellow, but I'm still thinking the yellow is gonna come in last here. I think it's gonna be time to tap in this tree here first, and then we can add some yellow into the mix. I think you are doing so amazing. If you've reached this point, way to go, friend. You are doing it and you are awesome, okay? So let's make this tree. And you can see there's a trunk and it's got two little branches kind of popping out. They fork up in the middle there. I'm going to use a mixture of the green and blue. So I'm going to grab some water. I'm going to grab some green. I'm going to mix a little blue in there with it. Start with that. We'll see how that shows up. You know what? Let's grab a little turquoise just in case, because I feel like it's not going to show up super good. So now over in this area, I'm kind of starting at the bottom, right? You can put your brush on its side on a little bit of an angle, and I'm aiming. The fork at the road pops just a little bit, just before the tree line. We're going to pop to the left, and then we're going to pop to the right, okay? So down at the bottom, I'm going to pull up, and then as I'm pulling up, so I have a flat face brush to start, flat. I'm going to pull up, 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 and as I start to fork to the left, I'm going to use the side of my brush this way. And then at this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to flat, 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 and then I'm going to fork over to the right, and I'm going to use my brush this way. So at this point, it's flat until I start to pull to the right, and then I use the side of my brush to get these nice little points here. Okay. Now, it doesn't show up super well, so I'm going to grab a little bit of black and mix that in there. Now, there's a lot of branches in this tree, and we can add a few to start. So I'm going to bring one from this side of my branch. I'm going to bring one over this way up. And I'm going to bring another one over here. And a lot of these branches are going to get covered up at first, but it's nice to see where they're going to live, just to get an idea of the actual shape of our tree. So this way, and then I'm going to have one that's going to kind of fold down over here. Something like that. Honestly, there's no right or wrong. As long as there's a few branches, you're good to go. And I'm just going to put a little trunk at the bottom. Use a little black on the left-hand side here just to kind of darken it up and bring it to the forefront. And then I'm also going to use a little bit of that darkness that I have on my brush. I'm going to wipe a little off, and I'm just going to do like a little back pull for some shading back here. I don't have like a whole lot of paint on my brush. I'm just kind of scraping it back and forth and adding a little shadow back here. It kind of gets lost right now. It's not like an insanely visible tree trunk, but it does the job, and you can totally see where it lives. And we're going to brighten it up later with those yellow markings. So fear not if you can't see it perfectly amazingly right now, okay? Now, as you can see, we're going to use the same technique that we used in our forest and stuff in our tree, using all the colors. And I end up concentrating a lot of the blue in these little spots down in the bottom here, which give it a beautiful shadow underneath. And then we're obviously going to start to incorporate some yellow up in the top here that gives it that nice bright color. I am going to start with my bigger brush, but we'll see how it goes. So I have my big brush here. I'm just going to start to grab. I'm going to start with the green and turquoise, just kind of grab a big bunch of that. And I want us to shape our tree. So there's a little space right in the middle of the triangle here. You can see through there. So we can start in that space so that we make sure we don't fill this part in. So I'm going to start to tap right in this area here. tap there. And on this side, it's going to come through those branches and down this way. And same over here. If you can see, it's going to come around like this. Here, let's use a little blue so it's darker. So our tree has this kind of really fun shape at the bottom where it comes in, down, up, and down. And then it's going to start to kind of waft out the side over here. Everything else is all taps. I'm just going to, you know, if you cover up your branches, that's okay. We're going to put them on after. It's nice to know. I like to put a few branches on first just to make sure that I'm going in the right direction. And I want all sorts of different colors in my tree. So I'm going to use the turquoise. And I'm going to use some white in here. And some green. Tapping it in, just tapping it in. And, you know, like I said, it's nice to have these little peaks and valleys in a tree. So it's not just like one round tree stump. Like we got little bumps and little curves and whatnots as we tap all of our little leafies in. Tap more blue down in these bottom areas. And we really start to see our tree taking shape. Now, if you want it to be really dramatic, you can totally go and grab a little bit of black and pop some little darker spots in there as well. All right, it's coming along. Now, as I reach this outside edge, I am gonna grab a little bit on my smaller brush. And basically, this is gonna come out to like a little point. And this is what's all the magic that's gonna fly off this tree after. Now, if you ever want to cover anything up, it's really great to let your paint dry first. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a few minutes. We have all this paint on our tree right now, and I want this blue to really show up, but it doesn't show up nearly as good as if everything was dry first. So I'm just going to wait it out, give it a few minutes, and then when we come back, I'm going to add, I think it'll be time. It'll be time to add the yellow into our landscape. Sorry, I can't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Everything's wet, so it keeps blending in. So I'm just gonna let it go. I'm gonna give it a few minutes to dry and then come back to it in a sec. Now, everything on my page is pretty much dry. I got a couple little wet spots, but that's okay. So what's gonna happen now is, first off, I'm gonna put my moon in the center here to make that happen. And then because all of my paint, oh hey, every once in a while the like contrast on my camera goes all wily. Stop it. Stop it. Okay. Anyways, so because things are dry now, we can start to add different textures and lighten and darken places better than what happens when we do it when our paint is wet. So first things first, I'm gonna grab my big Paddy McFatterson flathead. I'm gonna give it a good rinse. And basically what happens is I'm gonna put my brush straight on the canvas and I'm gonna twist it in a circle. So when I'm doing this, I use the bottom corner of my brush as the pivot point, and I pivot that around in a circle and I try my best. Honestly, it's all a crapshoot. Sometimes I can make a perfect circle, sometimes it's far from, and we just kind of go from there. So I'm gonna grab a scoop of white and I'm just gonna put a little yellow tinge into it. So I'm just gonna grab little yellow tinge with a little bit of white on my brush here. I'm gonna make sure my brush is nice and flat. I'm gonna kind of drag it on the side of my plate so that it stays nice and flat. Okay, and wherever you want your sun to be, the bottom point of my bristle is gonna be the middle of it. So if I want my, sorry, I keep saying sun, but it's supposed to be a moon. I'm gonna put it right here. I kind of give a little bit of pressure and twist it in a circle. It's kind of hard to see on my camera because it's too bright. Honestly, I want it to be way bigger than that. So I'm gonna push a little harder. I'm just gonna go back and forth with my brush and try and make as decent of a circle as I possibly can by bringing my brush around and around, back and forth. So push to the side, and I'm just using the side of my brush to kind of clean up the edges of my moon. And I have a rule that is, as soon as it looks pretty good, let's see if you can see it. It's so light. As soon as it looks pretty good, I stop. We can go on and on and on forever and ever. If it looks round to look at it to start, it's good. Don't keep working on it or else your moon's gonna end up taking over your page, okay? Now, like I said, we're gonna start to add some of our yellow elements and all that good stuff into the landscape. So to get the party started, I'm gonna use my medium flathead brush, and I'm gonna grab a little bit of this yellow. And honestly, you can grab some of the, like, if you want to lighten it with a little bit of white, sometimes that's kind of nice. And very gently, I'm just going to start to make little swoops around my moon. I'm just going to put my brush on its side and gently just kind of rock my brush around the outside. I took a little bit of white too. So it's kind of nice to have a few areas of the nice bright yellow, and then a few spots where it's a little bit of a lighter yellow hue. I don't go too crazy with it, just a few different spots around the outside here. Around the outside, around the outside. Na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na. Just little tiny swoops at a time, honestly, and you can just do this until Your little heart is content for as long as you'd like, for as far out as you want. And voila, we got a little bit of yellow around the moon. Now I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow and I'm going to swoop it, I'm going to grab a little water with my yellow. And along the tops of my hills, I'm going to just gently kind of bring my brush back and forth and add a few little highlights on the tops of my hill. Kind of just kissing the tops of the hill there. Makes a nice little highlight. Kind of gets down in the little valley. I'm going to use my brush to tap the corner again and add little bits of yellow mixed in with the tops of my trees here. Now, at any point in the game, if a color takes over too much, you can always bring it back with the color that it did take over. So if for some reason you went crazy with your yellow and you lost all your green, it's okay. Just grab a little green and pop a little bit of green at the bottom, kind of coming up into your trees, and you're gonna get really nice little highlights happening, okay? So before I add the yellow to the tops of this tree, I just want to add a little bit more detail in there. Like I was saying, because now it's dry, this blue is going to show up a lot brighter on my tree. So I'm going to use that corner again, and down in this area, I'm going to really bring that blue home. So it's inevitable. You see it, it's there, there's no missing it. You got a nice little shadowy area happening. Nice. And that doesn't mean you can't go back and grab a little bit more turquoise. You know, you can lighten up some areas as well. All right, and then I'm going to grab some of that yellow and I'm going to start to pop it in up at the top here. So one thing I always look for is if I'm, you know, tapping in a color like this and I get any kind of like really harsh, distinct lines, so like I can see it's yellow, then green, I'll take a little bit of that green and just like do a little bit more of a gradient. Just bring it down a notch so that it has a little bit more of a blend to it. That's just, it's a personal thing. You definitely don't have to do that if you're not feeling it. It's all good. Beauty. All right. Now we lost our branches in our tree here, so I'm going to grab a little water and a little mixture of the green and turquoise, and see how that goes to start. Maybe a little white on there too, just to kind of lighten it up. And using the side of my brush, I'm going to do that whole thing again. I'm just going to kind of pop up and add a few little branches. Now, that was way too bright for the tree that I have, so I'm going to bring it back. Need to add a little bit of black in there. And I'm just using the corner of my brush to add a few little extra little sticks in the mix. And we can grab a little bit of the yellow too and add little highlights of yellow on that, in the branches, just to show that they're getting a little kissed by that yellow moon as well. Down the side of our tree, we can add a little yellow there. Gives it a nice little highlight. Yeah, hey, that's looking really good. I'm excited. All right. Cool, 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 cool. The ebb and flow of painting, it never ends. Like the cleaning of a house, it never ends. Tap it all day long. Okay, 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 okay. All done. Beauty. So now we have all of this magical pollen kind of coming out and around our moon, and we're going to use so whatever your smallest brush handle is, I like to use the wooden end of my paintbrush to make all sorts of little dots. And just before I do that, you can kind of see around, I have a couple little blades of grass kind of popping up here and there. I did put a little shamrock there, but you know, you can really kind of choose your own adventure in that way. I'm just going to kind of flatten out my brush, and you can use yellow, white, turquoise, any kind of bright color that's going to show up on top of your grass. And basically just using the side of my brush, I just make little pulls. Pop a couple little blades of grass around the tree. I got some just random little tufts of grass places. And I'm just really, really gently kind of flatten my brush and fling nice little pieces. Less is more. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. It's okay. If you want to add a hidden shamrock in there, grab a little green. Add a little bit of white in with it. And basically all I do is I take my brush and I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I guess this one's a 4-leaf clover. With a little pop, something or other there. You can do, I'll make a shamrock over here. 1, 2, 3. Nobody's, you know, you can make them heart-shaped if you want, or just 3 little leaves, and keep it really, really simple. With a little bit of grass with it. Nice. All right, so now's the time. So basically, we are traversing the landscape with dots galore, and they're all kind of stemming from this tree here. So I kind of like to I forge a path. So taking the wooden end of my paintbrush handle, I'm gonna dip it in my yellow and just slow and steadily kind of start to make like a little path that's gonna shoot out a little just above the moon over here. And then I have a path that comes up from the bushes or the trees that's gonna make its way over and around this way. And then I also have a path that kind of comes from the tree over here, comes down around. And this part is really, truly all just about stamina. How many times can you stand making tiny little dots wafting along the canvas? So we have the direction that's coming down from the tree and up over the moon this way. It's going to come up from the bushes and around over to the moon this way, and then around the tree and up towards the moon this way. So I did it with a little bit of yellow. Now I can grab some blue. And it's all like really sporadic. So try to keep your colors, you know, distinct. But like not too much of each color. We don't want to overdo anything. So less is more. If you start with less and kind of follow the path with each color individually. Some turquoise. Need to add a little more to my plate. And that's that. So just keep dotting your I's, crossing your T's. And you know, it's going to be obvious that some colors are going to show up a little better on certain areas than others. So where the colors kind of pop a little bit more, that's a good reason to add a little bit more of that color. White is fantastic to kind of get around all of these little magical areas and really show up. Once it gets around the moon though, it's going to get lost a little bit, but everywhere else it's pretty legit that like that white is going to be like a standout little dot in the process. And I like to keep my dots all different sizes. It's nice to have some bigger ones and some smaller ones. So as I kind of cruise along, sometimes I'll push a little harder, sometimes I'll push a little softer. And because magic floats in all directions, you know, sometimes there's little concentrations of it. It's not equal all the way around. Sometimes there's, you know, more dots congregated into one area. And then as they kind of flutter towards the moon, they disperse a little bit. The closer they get to the moon, they're flying their way out. So in these areas where they're getting a little bit more bulked up to shoot their way out towards the moon for whatever reason. And I could do this all day, all day. Now, and that's really, it's going to be up to you how many dots you want to put onto your canvas. Now, we're pretty much at the end of our painting right now, and I'd love to just take a little, like, I'll take a little lean back from a painting, take a look, like maybe some spots that need a little extra loving or need a little more, I think the word is chiaroscuro, which is the like dark darks and light lights. So, you know, I feel like in this area here, it's a little lost. It looks a little bit lighter on this canvas here, and I like that. So I can get in and, you know, lighten up a little bit in my tree area so that it's not so dark down at the bottom. Or vice versa, if you need to darken up some certain spots, absolutely get in there and darken up some of your areas as well. You can use this in any of the parts of your painting that you need to. And just keep adding. We can keep adding dots for days and days and days and days and days. Days and days and days and days and days and days. But that was really fun, right? I feel like this was a simple painting, and even though I talk way too much and sometimes it takes us a little longer than what I've been, you know, what I'm showing you here, it's all good. If for any reason, if you got through this painting with me in the time allotted, amazing. If you have to finish it later and you actually complete the process, super incredibly amazing. I feel if you can come back to something and finish it later, you're actually probably way better at it than I am, because I have a hard time not just getting it all done in one shot. And you should be really proud of yourself. So I always like to say, if you do finish up, just put your name on it. You did all the work. It's really important that everybody knows that you're the one who made it. Congratulations. And I would be so incredibly honored if you take a picture, something you can go like this. Let me know that you did the painting. Go over to the Julie's Paint Party public Facebook group, post it in there so everybody can tell you how amazing you are. All right? I will see you soon, my friends. I hope you have a fabulous day today.